Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the PhD defense of Ms. Karem Sánchez de Roldán. Welcome especially her family members. Could I ask you in the audience to switch off your mobile phone or at least the ringtone so that we won't be disturbed during the defense? I declare the meeting open. I bid you, Ms. Karem Sánchez de Roldán, most heartily welcome. You may now give a brief exposition of your research, of your reasons for having undertaken it, and of the results it has yielded.
Dear Rector Magnificus, examining committee, colleagues, friends and family. This afternoon, I present my research on social exclusion, social capital, and policy formulation in Valle del Cauca, Colombia. Since its inception, the development agenda setting that has been addressed to and often imposed on developing countries has resulted from two complex and interwoven forces. On the one hand, actors in development generate the understandings and interpretations of the existing realities in those countries. However, within the wide array of priorities and opinions, these interpretations are not homogeneous. In fact, their heterogeneity means that they offer conflicted insights into development and well-being. On the other hand, actors in development exert a differential power. From a dialectic perspective, policies, whether economic or social, are a synthesis of these driving forces. Little is known about how these driving forces interact and have consequences at the national and subnational level in the specific context of countries, departments, and municipalities. In fact, the more closely the realities under studies examined, the more vivid, humanized, and richly nuanced the results become. Ultimately, development and its agenda setting is about people's lives. These dissertations seeks to shed light on factors such as the strains, convergences, divergences, and expectations that are brought about in the encounter and clashes of understandings and interpretations of existing realities, as well as the differential power that actors exert in development. It became clear that language and discourse were and are exceptional powerful tools. They can construct reality or make it invisible. Social policy, as one of the central tools in development, is framed by means of choices in terms, expressions, and discursive devices. All of these contribute to highlighting or concealing particular phases of reality. As a result, buzzwords in development and their power and constraints become central in this analysis, especially poverty, social exclusion, and social capital, which are at the core of the analysis. It is possible to read into social policy the dominant hegemonic ideology in regard to development itself and the role assigned to political, economic, and social actors in it. The state, private sector, social groups, and individuals. From an analytical and methodological perspective, the elucidation of descriptions, understandings, and interpretations contained in social policy and the explicit exposure of the many underlying choices and assumptions contributes to unravel implications and consequences for the beneficiaries. As part of a complex political framework, policies are also tools of power. The urgency to produce outcome in the lines imposed by financial organizations, the pressures due to time constraints, the acquired political commitments, and the need to react and solve urgent real social problems are all factors preventing governments, policymakers, and practitioners to devote the resources to understanding the multidimensional implication of the whole social policy process and the intended and non-intended effects it produces in people and society. This dissertation addresses these questions, framed within specific boundaries a clearly defined geographical area, Valle del Cauca, and 5 selected municipalities, Buenaventura, Cali, Cartago, Florida, and Tuluá in Colombia. A significant period of time, 1998-2008, a relevant issue for social policy, social exclusion, and a singular theoretical and ideological discourse for social policy, the social capital approach. The social exclusion, social capital, dyadic conceptual device is the epistemological and heuristic ensemble guiding the research. Therefore, the objective of this research is to explore theoretical, empirical, and pragmatic dimension of the social exclusion, social capital dyadic conceptual device. In doing so, its goal is to scrutinize each of these notions and its combined treatment in the social policy formulation in the Colombian and Valle del Cauca context. The research question addressed is, does social exclusion, social capital become a dyadic conceptual device used to understand and interpret the Colombian social reality, influencing both social policy formulation and people's perception, and at the same time becoming instrumental to maintaining underlying power relationship structuring the society? In a dialectic interplay between homogeneity and heterogeneity, this research looks at Valle del Cauca as a whole and examines, for the sake of diversity, 5 of its municipalities, exemplifying existing heterogeneity. From a social and political perspective, it echoes the struggles Colombia confronts as a whole. The research focuses on the decade from 1998 to 2008, when economic, social, and political dynamics were especially encompassed by financial crisis, drug trafficking activities, violence and conflict, poverty and inequality, and political and institutional predicaments. This was the background to settle the social exclusion, social policy formulation, and a strong discourse pointing at social capital. The methodological strategy involved the use of quantitative and qualitative research techniques. Inspired by Michel Foucault's idea of dispositif, this research defines its theoretical and methodological framework with the notion of a dyadic conceptual device as an epistemological and heuristic concept, referred to the pair social exclusion, social capital. It involves the reference to a heterogeneous ensemble consisting of discourses, institutions, architectural forms, regulatory decisions, laws, administrative measures, scientific statements, philosophical, moral, and philanthropic propositions. In short, the said as much as the unsaid, and the system of relations between the ensemble's elements. The nature of the connection between heterogeneous elements, and third, its strategic function of responding to an urgent need. The employment of a conceptual device in the Foucauldian approach, composed by social exclusion and social capital, brings to light the complex networks of power relations supported by a particular forms of knowledge. This approach provides a different perspective to examining the way in which social problems are framed, what the proposed solutions are, and how the whole shapes the policy as a way of answering the defined problem. It is because of the conceptual device approach, on one hand, that we overcome the definition-related and isolation problem that is addressed. In this regard, it does not seek an absolute and unique answer to the ontological question, what is social exclusion, or social capital, or any other term describing or ascribed to social settings. Rather, the conceptual device draws attention to the prevalent interpretations, contents, knowledge, and power relationships gathered under such labels. On the other hand, it acknowledges and brings to the fore the central relational character of the set of elements that are historically located in the heterogeneous ensemble under consideration. This research is first and foremost aimed at contributing to the current reflection and debate on development, problematizing the power relationships in the production of knowledge in developing countries. In a future research agenda, it would be possible to compose other conceptual devices serving to identify the elements in their heterogeneous ensemble, establishing their relationships and deciphering the way in which they perform their strategic function. The terms used in the social exclusion, social capital conceptual device express popular feelings and needs. Moreover, they are derived from the harsh life experiences of those individuals, women, men, youth, Black, elders, and others, who are trying to solve the problem of how to belong to and live in a Colombian society. The blurred definition of social exclusion, social capital, and the constellations of associated terms have rung bells in the ears of many. These terms, being a part of everyday language, recall actions and attitudes that supposedly contribute to reaching a better way to be a part of a society. They also sometimes provide the desperately needed social support in critical situations. Who, in circumstances of poverty, violence, conflict, forced displacement, vulnerability, and exclusion because of race, age, gender, and/or geographical origin, will deny the urgency of reciprocity, mutual help, trust, associative organization, and collective action as terms related to social capital? Once the post-2015 development agenda is settled, the terms sustainability, sustainable, inclusion, inclusive, seems to be part and parcel of the development lexicon for the next decades. These are the terms in which social development and policy are going to be formulated in the near future, as seems to be the case. Assessing the conceptual, comprehensive, and pragmatic power would help to analyze their effectiveness not only in building a global consensus regarding what should be done, but also in framing their success or failure in describing, understanding, and interpreting the complex social realities in the best possible way. The life and well-being of many depend on these choices. Thank you.